Bum-ba-da-dum. Hey y'all, Banjo Ben here. Have you ever heard people do stuff like this in their rhythm? That little. Now, granted, you wouldn't do it that many times in one progression like I just did. I just wanted to demonstrate it. I'm calling that the stutter rhythm, like you're walking across the carpet and your toe catches the carpet and you take that little short step. That's what we're going to learn today, but even more. I love teaching lessons that are birthed out of my own pursuit of the instrument. Not just something that I go and teach that I think you'll like or might help you make you better, but something that I'm actually working on. So expect some mistakes today, well, like I normally do. And I always want to be a better rhythm guitar player. It's so important. And I've never considered myself a great rhythm guitar player. I always want to get better. And one of the ways that I do that is go and watch videos or listen to albums of people that I think are great rhythm guitar players. And there's a lot of them out there. One of my favorites is Dan Tyminski. He's just got rhythm no matter what instrument he's playing. And I love his guitar playing. It's very powerful. And I don't play like him, but I try to grab some things from him. And one of the things that he played, it passed by really quick in the video. I was like, what's that? That sounds so good. And I backed it up. He did something like this. You hear that? And there's like this little hiccup. It's like there was a note supposed to be played that I didn't hear, but then it brought out this other note on the upbeat. You hear that? And so I started playing that, messing with that. And I thought, well, that's actually a variation of what I was calling the stutter rhythm. So what we're going to learn is, first we'll just start with a basic bluegrass rhythm pattern. In case you don't really have that down, we're going to cover that. And then we're going to learn this stutter rhythm, which is like it's funny that because I actually stutter from time to time, especially when I say words that start with ST. So I'll probably do some stuttering today. And then we're going to move on and learn that little hiccup. And I think make yourself a better player, okay? If you're not a Gold Pick member at banjobenclark.com, you want to do that. Go to joinbanjoben.com because then you'll be able to access this full lesson and hundreds more, y'all, on banjo, guitar, mandolin. I'll have the tabs there for download that we're going to look at today, as well as some jam track MP3s where I play through these exercises, 2 different speeds, and then also offer them without the guitar for you to play along and mimic what I'm doing. I'm excited about this lesson. I think it's going to help you in your rhythm guitar playing, especially those of you who are kind of stuck in a rut and you're tired of playing the same old strums and stuff. This is going to get you out of that. I'm going to push you out of that. So let's jump right into this. We'll start with a basic bluegrass rhythm strum pattern, and we'll move on from there. Hey, y'all, let's just start first with a basic rhythm guitar palette that we can build upon. You've probably heard bluegrass rhythm guitar referred to as like boom chick or boom chuck rhythm. And primarily what we're doing is alternating back and forth between various bass notes, depending on what chord we're on. And those can vary, they're up to you. And then doing some strums in between that. Now, the most basic kind would just be like a bass strum, bass strum, bass strum. But then we could start throwing in some upstrokes. Notice I'm getting my movement from my wrist in this direction, not my arm like this. And this isn't really a how to play rhythm course. I have those already on my site. Just wanted to cover some of these basics. Let me give you a pattern that we can look at. Here's 4 measures, 2 measures of G, and then 2 measures of C. Look here on my iPad, you see the bass notes there, and that they differ, right? So I'm doing the 1 and the 5, the G and the D note here. Then when I'm preparing to go to a C chord, that's where we're moving toward, I'm going to change my second bass note to help lead the ear up. So the first measure goes, and then the second measure goes, because it's taking our ear there. That's just what I'm preferring to do, okay, in this particular exercise. if we look at how that whole line is played, it sounds like this. You'll also notice that the very last line of that measure, I change up my bass notes from a C to a G like we did here. I'm going C down to A. Why do I do that? Because we're going back to a G measure. So that also helps lead our ear. And that's going to matter here in a little while whenever we add that hiccup. So just that first line. It doesn't really matter how many times you do down and ups. That's just a good pattern that you can mimic. Bass, down, up, bass, up, down, bass, down, up. But you can simplify it and do all downstrokes if you want. That's fine. We'll go to the next line. We've got 2 measures of G. Same bass notes. And then we'll go to a D chord. Oftentimes, for my D chord bass notes, I will alternate the D note here, and I'll throw a thumb over and grab that D sharp whenever I'm getting ready to go back to a G chord. We don't do that here, but I just wanted to throw that in. Okay, next line, we're going to do the same thing that we saw in the first line. And then, last line, we have a quick turnaround that's so very common in bluegrass, where we have a measure G, measure D, then back to G. And then a good old G run. A couple things to mention before we move on to this hiccup is that my actual strums, I'm not going all the way through the strings, right? You'll notice that I tab them for the first 3 strings. But even there, it's up to you how many of those that you hit. I don't actually hit all 3 strings with every strum. Your strums are primarily these first 2 strings. Sometimes I'll get the others, but you want to keep them crisp, and you don't want them going through all the strings. Sometimes you do for effect, but most of the time you don't. So I'm just tickling those first couple strings. Again, this isn't meant to teach you all about the basic rhythm bluegrass strum, but I just want to cover those basics before we move on. So now, if you feel like that you have all of that, actually, why don't you play it along with me? And we'll see. 1, 2, 1, 2, ready, go. Like you got a grip on that, then we're ready to move along to what we call the stutter step or the stutter rhythm. So on the second page of tabs, starting in measure 17, it's the same exact progression that we saw before. All right, I like to do that when I'm teaching, establish a bass line, and then we start altering that so that we change as little as possible as we learn. By the way, this chord progression is the same chord progression as Wreck of Old 97. Okay, so you can immediately put it to work in a song like that. But as we know, bluegrass songs have very similar chord progressions often, so you're going to be using these in every song that you play, just about. Okay, let's look and see what's actually changed. So if you compare one of our last measures, let's compare measure 2 with here at measure 18. Okay, measure 2, we had the bass note, double strum, bass note, and then we strummed on the 3 and 4 ends, so 3 more strums here. But what we notice over here, the corresponding measure, is that the first half is the same, but instead of a strum that happened right here, we're doing another little upstroke on one of the bass notes. Now, I don't want you to think about this as being like a flat pick and move. I think what's helpful is to imagine that little lick as a tiny little strum. Okay, so we were strumming using our wrist, right? And we're going to do that in a micro movement. Now it takes some touch, and I'm still working on it too. Okay? And why don't you just practice that with me really slow? So don't worry about going to the C chord yet. Just practice this lick. Start at measure 17. Ready, go. Maybe you need to slow it down some more, that's fine. You might just need to practice going. And don't worry about the strums. Okay? And it's easy to miss those notes, just ask me. Okay? Now when we go to the C chord, we've got to move fast. That's probably the hardest switch in this particular type of rhythm, is getting from that full G chord to a full C chord. But what we did here, instead of playing just an open A string here, which is what we did before, we had an open A string and then we did another strum here. This time we're going to leave our finger down on that C note in that third fret and then pick it down up, right? To lead our ear into that next chord change, which is coming up, back to the G chord. So let's play those two measures of C. Sounds like this. Can we put all that together, G and C? Let's try. Ready, go. Now, in real life, when you're going faster, that end of measure 18, you're not going to be able to get those two full strums before you have to move your ring finger up and grab that C chord. But that's okay, because it'll still offer a sound, and it can even be kind of a rhythmic mandolin chop sound, right? So you couldn't really tell that I didn't grab the chord. Just want to try to hold it down as long as you can. Oh, that's fun. Let's look at the next line. First half of that line is the same thing, going to the D chord. But then we go to the D chord, and that's not as hard to switch to because our pinky's already down, our ring finger's already down, doesn't have to move, right? But when we play measure 24, the little hiccup or stutter that I'm going to give you, I'm reaching up with my index finger, leaving the rest of the chord down, and reaching up, and then I'll form my chord again. So measure 24. I'll see if I can play it, y'all. There it is. That sounds nice. I think that does a lot to lead your ear back to that G chord. It's that whole line. Ready, go. I missed it. It's okay, we'll try it again. Again. I bet you got it. It's kind of hard to do it slow. There it is. Sped up. Sounds pretty cool. sounds great. Fun to do. You have to tell yourself don't do it too much. All right, next time we're going into the C chord again, and this line 25 through 28 is the exact same thing we've already done in the first. So nothing to learn. It's just more practice. But we are going to learn something different in the last line of this stutter rhythm. We're going to do that quick 1-5-1 turnaround. All right, and the way that we get up to the D is the same. But once we get there, instead of going, we're going to do something a little bit harder, actually. Second half of measure 30, we're doing this backwards, right? It's still down, up pick strokes, but we're starting on a D string and then having to go underneath that to that A string. And that's more challenging up to speed. But again, I want you to think about it as a little bitty rhythm lick. You can just loop measure 30. It's important to stay loose. I think that's so effective to take our ears back to that G chord. That sounds so good. All right, and then once we get into that G chord again, I just gave you a variation that's in the same spirit as this stutter rhythm for a G run. It sounds like this. Again. So rather than this, we're going to incorporate some rhythm into it. So bass, strum. Just throws the ear for a bit of a loop, doesn't it? That whole line. Let's try playing all the way through the stutter rhythm, measures 17 through 32, about that speed. 1, 2, ready, go. Try a little faster. I bet you can speed it up a little bit. 1, 2, ready, go. So good. Again, we wouldn't do it every time we change chords like we're doing in the exercise, right? But man, it would sound really great just being thrown in just as a rhythm fill and to help lead others' ears to where you're going. Okay, in our next video segment, and for my Gold Pick members, we're going to look at that little, what I call a hiccup, which is where we actually remove some of these notes to cause the ear to say, where'd that note go? And then we supply them with a note to give them great satisfaction, right? So tension and release that I think ups our rhythm playing even another notch. Let's check that out. And if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, come on over to Join Banjo Ben to learn more about being a Gold Pick member. See you over there.